Hey, what's happening, family? It's your man, Mark Black. You know what it is. Welcome to your Sucker-Free Saturday. Family, before we get started, just a few items here. Make sure that you click the like or the hater button on your way in, whichever strikes your fancy. Let YouTube know that this is content that you want to view. Also, make sure that if you get a chance to, that you check out the links in the description field. There are links there below to be able to support the channel, whether through the purchasing of some of my channel merch or some books to put some fat on your head, or if you just want to throw a tip your brother's way, there's links in the description for that. All right. So, family, let's get right into it, shall we? Today's Sucker Free Saturday broadcast I titled Cash Psychology because family, what we've been noticing lately is how many people feel some kind of way about our push for reparations, our push for restoration, remediation, and repair, especially in light of clear the clear impetus for us shouting to cut the check, right? That we are looking to be remunerated in some way, shape, or fashion. You have many people. your enemies that you would expect to be against reparations in, from the beginning, from word say go, but also a lot of folk that you wouldn't expect to be against us making this push during this transformational moment, who quail against the idea of us receiving cash remuneration, cash reparations, right? So I wanted to talk about the economics, the psychology of the economics behind the reparational push, right? Because in point of fact, family, there's some clear reasons why everyone, when I talk about this, I'm not talking about just white folks, I'm not talking about just immigrants, I'm talking about even ADOS folk, right? Who have real issues with black folk, ADOS folk, receiving cash payments as a part of a comprehensive reparations program. The first thing I want to do, though, fam, before I go in depth, is I want to show you a few articles here that detail what it is that I'm talking about. This first article here is written by Roy L. Brooks, and as you can see, he titled the article "Reparations Aren't About Money." Now, in this article, he talks about the idea of reparations being about some sort of reconciliation process, right? Truth and reconciliation. I'm certain that you are familiar with that process, right? During the apartheid era, at the end of the apartheid era in South Africa, one of the things that they did was they instituted a commission called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, right? And this Truth and Reconciliation Commission was primarily in place to try to get the truth of things that occurred, situations that happened during apartheid. They were promised immunity as long as they could get it on the record what actually happened, what things were actually done to the majority African people, right? And so they had testimony, on top of testimony, people coming forward and talking about different circumstances, different situations, and things like that. Now, in this article, Roy L. Brooks mentions here, I highlighted here for you all to read. He says a primary risk comes from the poor judgments of zealous supporters of black reparations. Too many of them have branded black reparations as a campaign for cash reparations, white punishment, or white guilt. Now, I want to go ahead and pop a link here in the chat so you can read the article yourself. All right. But as you can see here, he's talking about those of us who are shouting, cut the check, right? He's saying that we are zealous supporters who are making a poor judgment by demanding cash reparations. He's saying that we're making this about punishing white folks' guilt, and getting paid, right? Now, in this article, he argues that we have to address the moral aspects of the aftermath of slavery and so on and so forth, right? He also talks about here, and you can see where it is that he's going in this article when he says the fundamental purpose for addressing atrocities or redressing atrocities then is to accentuate a common humanity between perpetrator and victims. So he's arguing in this article that us who are demanding that the government comes up with an amount, that comes up with a number, and then puts together a commission for distribution of those funds to the American descendants of slavery, are in some way failing to cleave to the common humanity of our fellow Americans, right? Now, again, I'm going to discuss the psychological piece behind articles like this because it's important to know not just what logical arguments this man is making, but also the psychology behind the arguments, right? Because think about this, family. No one's arguing that the current wealth inequality, right, representative of about 220 some odd years that we would have to have growth in our economy as ADOS people to even reach where white folks are now, right? No one's arguing that that is somehow inhumane or whatever, what have you, that that's denying, our essential humanity or not accentuating our common humanity, right? Peace, Zulu, by the way. Welcome to your Sucka-Free Saturday, man. I appreciate it. See, when we start talking about wealth inequality, no one is sitting here saying that the purpose behind how they've done things is to accentuate our common humanity. As a matter of fact, um, the only way, peace, cease, welcome to the broadcast, man. Um, The only way this whole thing could work is partly to deny our essential humanity, right? Part of the reason why they were able to do to us and our ancestors what they were able to do to us was the fact that they had denied our humanity. So why is it incumbent upon us as ADOS people to be arguing that redress for us also has to accentuate our humanity in the eyes of the perpetrators of the atrocities against our people? Why is it that it is imperative upon us that we somehow demand that they recognize our humanity when everything about what they've done precludes that? You follow me? So, I wanted to show y'all that article. And as you can see there, if you read the article and the link there yourself, you can see that he goes on and on talking about, the moral aspects of enslavement and Jim Crow and so on and so forth. The usual, right? There are those people who are comfortable with the ADOS transformational moment as long as we keep it on this really high intellectual or moral basis, right? In other words, when we start becoming radical, when we start talking about cutting the check, all of a sudden they feel some kind of way. You feel me? Right? So with that said, I wanted to show you another article here. This article is an article discussing the give me just a second here. I'm gonna pull up this article right here. This is an article that is written by somebody who's affiliated with HBCUs, right? And I'll also put a link to this article in the chat here too for you to peruse at your convenience, okay? But in this article, you notice the title of the article basically says it all. Fully funding HBCUs is the way to do reparations right, right? So in other words, reparations for us isn't about addressing the economic issues. This person here in this article is talking about us needing more opportunity for education and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? Right? Like, so this is ridiculous in the point of fact that we understand clearly if you read Dr. Darity et alia's report, what we get wrong about the racial wealth gap, that even if education was absolutely free for ADOS folk, right? If it was completely free, didn't cost us a thing, there would still be no guarantee that we would have any effect on closing the racial wealth gap. Yo, Starman, welcome to your Sucka-Free Saturday. Glad to have you. By the way, fam, make sure you hit that like or that hater button on your way in. If you have social media access, please share this video on social media. And also, at your convenience, please check those links there in the description field of the video. There are links there to help support the channel. It's all appreciated. And definitely, take a look at that and make that decision as to whether or not you want to do that. So you have people arguing that black folk need more education, right? So that we should fund the HBCUs. I've heard people talking about reparations where they say we should give free health care, free medical care, free mental health care, and so on and so forth, right? Some people have talked about we should get zero interest or low interest home loans and things like that. Shout out to you, Albert. Welcome to your Sucka-Free Saturday broadcast. We appreciate you. By the way, if you're here, family, go ahead and pop your name up in the chat just so I can shout you out and show you some love. But if you notice, family, there's very few people that, when they consider that reparations is due, have a problem with offering us education, offering us health care, offering us land, homes, so on and so forth, right? When you start talking about getting down to brass tacks, like how reparations is going to be paid, people have a range of ideas. But one thing that is common, I'm feeling okay today, C's. A little tired, but you know what? I'm glad to be here. I really wanted to do this one because I wanted to give a shout out to Show Nuff for the topic idea, right? To talk about the economics and the psychology of the economics behind our reparations claim, our justice claim. Shout out to you, by the way, Sister Lila. It's good to see you. Welcome to the broadcast. If you notice, family, each of these individuals, though, always go up to a line and then stop, right? They will offer a whole range of what they consider to be a comprehensive reparational package until you start talking about cutting the check. Shalom, Paul. Welcome to the broadcast. Glad to have you. Right? As soon as you start talking about cutting the check, start talking about putting cash money in the hands of ADOS people, everybody's got a problem with that, including other ADOS people. By the way, one quick thing to do before I continue to go on, shout out to Joseph Jenkins, the latest Angry Black Sheep. Welcome to the team. We appreciate you. Now, family, I mentioned to you that these people are making these arguments and they're framing them as logical arguments, but there is a psychology that lies behind the desire, the wish to deny us the access to actual real capital, i.e., money, right? To deny us bread. Now, there are three defense mechanisms that I want to discuss today. Defense mechanisms in psychology are means by which the ego preserves itself, right? So whenever the ego is feeling threatened by an internal or an external stimulus, these defense mechanisms allows the ego to maintain its integrity, right? So these psychological defense mechanisms that I'm going to discuss work on every individual level, including us. It's imperative, family, that we understand clearly that the psychological factors that play into people's wish to deny us actual access to capital are stronger than any logical arguments that you can make, right? Peace, August Dreams. Welcome to the broadcast, and thank you for joining us here on Sucka-Free Saturday. Let me repeat that for you, family. The psychological motivations, right? The psychological defenses that these people put up to buttress their logical arguments are more powerful than the logic itself. Zulu said a wolf will always see the lamb as prey. So white supremacists will always view us second-class citizens, etc. Facts, right? Like, there are those people out here that expect us, whenever a trauma occurs to us, something happens to us, that they want not only for us to not become radicalized, not to become angry or upset or pissed off or whatever the case may be, they also demand that we forgive them. Why is it that you think that every time an incident happens and the media, the pale stream media, is in the faces of the victim's family and so on and so forth, one of the questions, if you're an ADOS person, one of the questions they ask you invariably has to do with forgiving the individual that caused you and your family member harm. Why is it that they demand our forgiveness? Right? See, we have to understand, family, that the economic aspects of this is going to be strongly affected by people's psychological perceptions and their need to defend their own egos in this matter. So, in order for us to be effective advocates for ADOS, for our justice claim, we have to understand how it is psychologically that people are viewing the debate. Am I making any sense here, family? You know what I'm saying? Talk black to me. Am I making any sense here on this? Right? In order for us to be effective advocates, we have to understand not just what their thought process is, but the psychological motivations that drive them. So, family, let me go ahead and jump right into this thing. There are three primary defense mechanisms that I'm going to talk about today. And those defense mechanisms are projection, displacement, and rationalization. Projection, displacement, and rationalization. Let's look at those really quickly. Here's an article here from Psychology Today. This is a guide to those defense mechanisms because, as you see from the article here, they are types or forms of self-deception. Let me run it down to you. Psychological defense mechanisms allow you to be able to alter your perception of what's actually true. It allows you to alter the reality of circumstances, right? Projection alters reality by allowing you to take, okay, so what projection is basically here, and I'll highlight this for you. Projection is basically you are feeling that in any given particular circumstance or situation, you would act a certain way, right? So let's say that you have a mate, somebody you really love, somebody you really care for, okay? Now, you're feeling a little insecure about the relationship, right? You think that things are shaky, right? So rather than you facing the fact that you have insecurities about your relationship with your mate, what you do is you project those insecurities onto your mate. You basically say, you know what? You always acting like you don't trust me. You always acting like you don't care for me. You always thinking I'm just going to run off on you. And your mate may not be thinking any of that. That's actually your perception or your feeling. But rather than you facing your feelings about your relationship, you push those feelings, you project them off onto somebody, onto your mate, right? You follow me? I'm trying to make this stuff as simple as I possibly can. Now, the reason why projection is weird, it's complicated, is because there's quite a few times when a person might project their perception off onto somebody that may have some validity to it, right? So in other words, let's say you're insecure, right? You know, your woman's popular, you know, everybody want to talk to her and so on and so forth, right? You're projecting your insecurity off on her, but she may be very lively, flirtatious, completely innocent, mind you, right? But she may be a very lively, flirtatious person, right? So when you come to her and you're saying you're always in people's face and you know and this, that, and the third, and you start projecting that bullshit off on them, right? If they're not paying attention to their own self, if they're not secure enough in their own self and how they roll, they may actually see your projection as valid. Even though you're the one at fault, you're the one that's having the psychological issue that you're using projection to protect your ego from, to defend yourself from. Now, how does this work in an ADOS perspective? Well, it's very simple. How many times when we start talking about cut the check, you hear people say shit like, man, if they gave you niggas money, Cadillac and KFC stock will go through the roof, right? Hit one in the chat if you've heard something like that. If you've heard somebody say some shit like that, right? Or they'll say something like, well, we can't even manage the little we got. So if they give us our checks, all of y'all just gonna waste the money, right? You familiar with that? So see what this basically is, family, from an ADOS perspective, is that part of the reason why people object to us receiving any type of cash remuneration as a part of a comprehensive reparations package is because they're projecting off on us what they would be likely to do given those circumstances. And if you think that that's just black folk, no, that's white folks too. That's everybody in this country. As I told you, think about some of the objections you've heard. Well, you know what? Y'all just be getting something for nothing and y'all just gonna lay back and do nothing. No, what they're saying to you is that if they got something for nothing, right, they would be sitting back and not doing shit. But that doesn't mean that that's how you roll, right? That's exactly. August will say, oh, we're begging for handouts, right? Classic projection. They would feel, okay, so in this particular circumstance, somebody who's calling us beggars, saying, y'all begging the white man, is somebody who feels insecure about the fact that we're having to work and demand our justice claim be honored, right? It is a justice claim. We're not beggars, right? Nobody's got their hand out begging. We're demanding what belongs to us. You dig? But these same people, right? These same folk, because of the wounding of their pride, right? The issue that they're having is that they feel like they're losing their dignity in having to do this work. They're losing their pride and esteem in themselves, or they feel like they are. Then they project off onto us who are proponents and advocates of our justice claim that we're beggars, that we're begging the white man, right? Projection is easy to spot, but you have to know what you're looking at, right? Projection usually presents itself to you in a way that attempts to describe your motivations without you ever having detailed what your motivations are. In other words, when someone says to you, well, if we give you niggas money, y'all gonna do X, or we can't trust black people with even a little bit of money. What make you think we could trust them with a lot? Or why should we beg the white man for money? And so on and so forth, right? They're clearly telling you their motivations, what is driving them, what insecurities, what issues they're projecting off onto you. Because you know clearly what your motivations are. Your motivation for advocacy in this space is about honoring the justice claim that your ancestors had from moment one. The justice claim we should have gotten centuries ago. We're just continuing the work. We've picked up the baton and we're running with it. We're not beggars. We're not any of the shit that these people try to say we are. We know what our motivations are. We are honoring our ancestors. We're cleaving to our lineage in this transformational moment. So anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is clearly projecting their bullshit off on you. Don't worry, family. I have a little special extra thing that I'm going to give you at the end of the broadcast here. All right? A little something extra as a gift. Now, I would like to take a brief bit of time to talk about the second psychological defense mechanism that we see as ADOS, right? I hear you on that one, August. Let me get my reparations. Oh, it's on and cracking. I'm opening a school for boys, a working farm, and I'm going to be expanding bomb. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's going to be on and cracking. All right. The second Psychological defense mechanism that I want to discuss today with you, family, is displacement, right? Displacement is greatly important for us as ADOS people. So let me give you a scenario, right? You at work and your boss come to you and your boss is talking some real clever shit, right? Dressing you down, talking to you like you got two heads and both of them ugly, right? Now this your boss. So you can't come back clever at this motherfucker, right? You can't tell this motherfucker, hey, man, fuck you. Who the hell you think you talking to, right? Because you liable to find yourself on the unemployment line, you dig? Right? So as you get off from work and you head home, you come in through the door and your family there. Kids running around the house. Mrs. got the TV turned on. And you start yelling at everybody up in that motherfucker. If y'all don't sit y'all little narrow ass down, and damn it, woman, why you got that TV turned up so motherfucking loud? Can't I get some peace and quiet in this bitch? Family, that is a classic case of displacement. Displacement is the psychological defense mechanism that takes essentially your feelings that you have that you should be directing at someone or something else and redirecting them, right? Usually we use displacement, family, when we have what we consider to be negative feelings like outrage, anger, um, you know, a willingness to commit violence and so on and so forth, right? If somebody talk crazy to you, family, you gonna want to slap the taste out their mouth. Would you agree? Would you not? Right? You would want to slap the taste out their mouth. But under certain circumstances, you're not able to do so. So what ends up happening if you don't address that aggression, that upset, that outrage, that anger constructively, right? In other words, either taking it to the person who drew your ire in the first place or find some way to sublimate. There's another psychological word. To sublimate that into something positive, what you end up doing is you end up taking those feelings out on someone who does not deserve them. Displacement, family, is a poison in the ADOS community. I would argue that other than PTSD, the constant reinforcement of the psychological defense mechanism of displacement is primarily one of the greatest causes of pathology in our community as a people. Every day, we as ADOS people face microaggressions, macroaggressions, and pretty much every goddamn type of disrespect you can imagine. Everything from being told to wait when everyone else gets serviced, everything, being charged extra for basic shit that everybody else gets reasonably, for being denied opportunities to get loans, to get a place to stay, right? We go in for an apartment and we got to pay first and last, you know what I'm saying, and a hefty security deposit when the person that had credit same as yours, who was white or otherwise not ADOS, came in just before you and was able to get in with just a basic deposit. We face so much fuckery. And 90% of the time, family, we're facing this and not able to really address it with the motherfuckers who's committing the acts against us. We know that the shit is happening. We know that people are disrespecting us. People are denying us. People are mistreating us. People are abusing us. Exactly, Starman. Application fees, shipping and handling and so on. You dig? Right? We face all types of fuckery. So when you face your people right? When you face your brothers and sisters and your family, a lot of the time, the hostility, the anger, the outrage you feel at your ill treatment gets put on them. It gets put on them. And here you are mistreating your spouse, beating on your kids, kicking the goddamn dog, going ham. Bunch of angry ADOS folk who, rather than using that anger and outrage as rocket fuel to be able to propel us to action to demand our justice claim be honored, we continually abuse each other, continue to malign each other and hurt each other. How does displacement affect us as ADOS people? I lose count of all the ways. In interpersonal relationships, displacement means that we constantly are walking around on eggshells with each other. Displacement running rampant through the ADOS community makes it hard for us to have the opportunity to trust each other, to be able to get close to each other, because usually with displacement, that aggression is redoubled, right? So you're taking aggression out on your peoples. You're disrespecting them, right? You're hurting them. And you know it's wrong. But because you already know it's wrong, what happens ultimately with displacement is you figure that since I'm going to hang for lambs, I may as well hang for sheep. If I'm going to go in, I may as well go all the way in. Salute to my dear esteemed brother CRU, brother. Welcome to your Sucka-Free Saturday. Displacement, family, is a poison. In discussions about our justice claim and the economics of cash remuneration for the American descendants of slavery, displacement comes in the arguments that you hear from white folks where they say shit like, well, I'm poor. Ain't nobody ever gave me nothing. So why should we pay you anything? Right? Or they'll say something like, oh, I'm an immigrant to this country. I never owned slaves. So why the fuck should I pay you anything? You see what I'm saying? Displacement comes in because these white folks, in my humble opinion, have a damn fine grievance against their own government. They have issues with the distribution of wealth throughout the entirety of the United States. There's some white folks who are doing stratospherically well. Some who are doing okay. More that are kind of in the middle. And a not insubstantial number of them that are on the damn bottom. Now, they all equally have the opportunity due to whiteness to get a come up. But in this hyper-capitalist dog-eat-dog society we live in, for white folks and others, is get in where you fit in. So the idea of ADOS people pressing home a justice claim that may involve cash remuneration makes them angry. But they can't take their anger out on the government. The government has helicopter ships and cruise missiles and M16s. The government has MRAPs and LRADs and motherfucking CS bombs and grenades and shit. So what do? They take and they turn that anger that they have at their treatment that they've received at the hands of their government, that they have just as much of an opportunity to demand redress from the United States government for as any other citizen, and they take that hostility and they put it onto us. Family, do me a favor. There's about 20 of you watching right now. Drop a 1 in the chat if you've heard this. If we become too radical in demanding our justice claim be honored by America, it's going to make white folks attack us. it's going to make them start attacking us. Pop a one in the chat if that's an argument that you've heard before. That if we be too strident in demanding our due, that it's going to make white folks angry and they're going to attack us. Family, that is classic displacement. To my fellow white citizens and other non-ADOS folk, let me tell you something. You have just as much access and right to demand redress from your government of any grievances that you might motherfucking have. If you have a problem with the distribution, the unequal distribution of wealth in the society, if you have a problem with automation, if you have a problem with immigration, if you have a problem with any of this shit, you can have the same goddamn access to government as any other citizen. If you feel some kind of way about the way America is run, that does not belong in the lap of ADOS people. It belongs in the lap of your so-called elected fucking officials. You take that to your government, just like we're taking our demand to our government. And C said it on, hit it right on the head. He said they're going to attack regardless. It's how much are QE gonna make them work for it. In other words, family, displacement evidences itself in the greater society at large in collective reprisals against ADOS people. And those collective reprisals will come no matter what the hell we do. And Dr. Lee, I agree with you. I don't think that they will ever en masse support our reparations. They won't support this transformational moment en masse. And the best part about our advocacy is that we're not asking them. This is why this has become a political effort. Right? This is a political effort. We are bypassing Joe Blow from Kokomo. We're not asking his permission. We're not demanding from him his opinion. We don't give a fuck what he thinks. Our conversation for our justice claim is with the United States government. That's it, and that's all. That's the best damn part about it. We don't have to give a damn about what any of these people are saying. They can displace whatever issues they have with us receiving our due onto us all day long. They're going to do that anyway. That should never stop us from taking our righteous outrage, our just anger, and using that as fuel to propel us to pursue our justice claim as the American descendants of slavery. We need to stop taking our outrage, our upset, and our anger out on each other. This government is not invincible. Exactly, August. We don't need to check in with Archie Bunker. We can give less than a damn about what Joe the Plumber thinks. I could care less than a damn about what Sean Hannity or any of the rest of them think. We're not dealing with them. We're going straight to the source. As the radicals we are not wasting time with middlemen. We are going straight to the source. Family, displacement is a poison. I cannot stress it enough. Before I continue on with my broadcast, let me stress to you that I understand as your brother the traumas you face from day to day. I really do. I understand the disrespect. I understand the maligning of your character, the loss of your dignity. But I beg you, take that outrage and point it where it needs to go. Stop pointing it at your people. Stop attacking your own people. I'm not talking about black on black crime and none of that conservative bullshit. I'm just talking about in our interpersonal relationships and our relationships with each other as a collective. If we stop being hostile to each other because of displacing our anger off onto each other, it would actually allow us to come together and become closer. We could trust each other enough to get close to each other and cleave to each other, to work on each other's behalf in a way that we can't as long as we're displacing our anger and our outrage off onto each other rather than pointing it to the society at large that outrage and that anger belongs to. Just a little public service announcement. Family, the last psychological defense mechanism that I want to discuss is called rationalization. Now, rationalization, you see this one all the time. Let me bring this up for you, okay? And again, you'll find this on Psychology Today. Just look up the Essential Guide to Defense Mechanisms. Rationalization is basically a way of trying to explain away something, right? So, like, if you do something ill to somebody, okay, right? You done snapped on somebody, cussed their ass smooth out, and you knew you was out of pocket, right? Rationalization is the psychological defense mechanism that you use to be able to come up with a rationale, a reason that ostensibly explains what it was that you done. You feel me? Rationalization allows you to be able to say, well, if you hadn't done such and so, I wouldn't be going off like this, right? You'll find rationalization happening a lot in very abusive relationships. I have been in relationships where I've been the victim of abuse, all right? And one thing that you will invariably find in those relationships is that the abuser is never responsible for what they have done to you. Never. They always have a reason. They always have a rationale. If you had just cooked the meal properly, I wouldn't have went off on you. Had you just paid the bill when I told you to pay the bill, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. If you had just left me alone when I told you to leave me alone, your shit wouldn't be broke right now. And so on and so forth, right? Rationalization lets you basically say, hey, this isn't me. This was something else. I had nothing to do with it. Right? You fucked up. It was you that made the mistake. It was you that did the dirt. But rationalization allows you to be able to create a story, a narrative that allows you to be able to escape responsibility for what it is that you've done. Right? Now, let's talk about this one a minute. Because rationalization is one of those psychological defense mechanisms that we hear often buttressing the so-called arguments of our detractors, of our opponents. They say shit like, well, are we going to pay reparations to the Irish too? They were slaves. Or why isn't it that you asking Ghana, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, all the rest of them for reparations? They was the one that sold your people into slavery, right? Or we supposed to pay you and nothing, we ain't done nothing to y'all? The people that should have got paid is dead already. Oops. Oh, well, we don't owe nobody nothing. See, family, this society knows clearly that reparations is due, right? They've been knowing, right? From words they go. When we became freedmen, when our ancestors became free people, reparations was due. The clock has been ticking. But they found rationale after rationale after rationale to avoid paying us. Recently, I read a news article where the Democrats are going to give Trump $2 trillion. So much for them all being enemies and shit, right? But when you go to the Democrats and you say, bills due, ADOS people need their remuneration. We need restoration, remediation, and repair. It's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere between $5 and $17 trillion. All of a sudden, they can't find no money. That's going to be divisive. Yeah, we just can't give y'all money like that. But they can find $2 trillion to pull out their ass to give to Donald Trump to do whatever he wants. Right? Dr. Lely is spot on. The Irish were never chattel slaves in this damn country. You feel me? My point is, family, is that rationalization has been one of the primary means by which they've been able to skate by without paying us our due. How many of y'all have heard of the Green New Deal? Pop a one in the chat for me, family, if you've heard of the Green New Deal. Come on, family. I know y'all don't live under a rock. You know what I'm saying? I know. I know you've heard of the Green New Deal. Afro Troop, by the way, shout out to you. Welcome to the broadcast. How many of you know the estimated cost, the total cost, I should say, of the Green New Deal? Right? August, $2 trillion just showed up. Like for infrastructure around the nation, all of a sudden, $2 trillion just appeared out of nowhere. I wonder how that happened. Right, Dr. Lely, Ocasio, what's the name? Ocasio-Cortez, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez bullshit. Exactly. Right? But how many of you know the estimated cost, according to the GAO, right? This is the government accounting organization. The GAO, this is the official government accountants, the ones who tabulate up the cost of shit. The total amount, all told, if they were to fully fund all of the liabilities of the Green New Deal, right down the line as AOC et alia have laid it out, would total 96 trillion, that's trillion with a T, dollars. Let me repeat that for you. 96 trillion with a T, dollars. That's a huge ass number. So let me put this in a little bit of perspective for you. In 2018, the total GDP, that's gross domestic product of the United States, the total value of the GDP, right? The gross domestic product was around $18 trillion. And the Green New Deal is what, 6 times that amount? 6 times that amount. But they ain't got no money to pay you. Reparations is divisive, right? We can't give you niggas money. We can't cut y'all checks. You feel me? Family, rationalization allows America to continue to fob off our justice claim from generation to generation to generation. and it has to stop. We, you and I, should be the last generation that has to fight this fight. We can be the last generation to fight this fight. But we have three things that we need to make sure we do. Number one, we need to be honest. I told you I had a gimme for you at the end of the broadcast because I'm going to be wrapping this up here shortly. The first thing that we need to do is be honest, always honest about the reality of our circumstance. We have to tell the truth about our insecurities, our fears, our worries, our concerns. We gotta stop projecting that shit off on each other. And more importantly, we have to tell the truth about other people's motivations. When we see them projecting their bullshit off on us, your greatest weapon, family, is the truth. Oh man, you niggas would just buy up nothing but motherfucking Popeye's chicken and Cadillac cars. Really? Maybe you might. I got better shit to do. Maybe you might be like that. Perhaps you're the one with the issue on how to use money and how to address resources and capital and so on and so forth. But that's not me. That's not the people that I interact with. Tell the truth. Tell the truth to yourself to prevent you from projecting your bullshit, your insecurities, your issues off on other people. But you also tell people who are projecting bullshit onto you the truth. Be like, oh, that's you, dog. That ain't me. Fuck is you talking about? Okay, so you may not know how to handle money. I've got plans. When my justice claim finally comes through, I've got plans. I don't need you policing my shit. If you feel insecure about how you handle bread, then you need some financial education. Don't put that on me. Jones said print the money or borrow it from China. Shit, that's what they do with everything else. And I'm with you, August. So what if I want some motherfucking chicken and a Cadillac? It's my money. It's my money. Family, you got to understand something. Don't you think, see, listen, don't you think it's weird? I'm not going to drag this on too long, but don't you think it's weird that everybody wants to castigate ADOS people for doing shit that just American people do, right? Americans buy shoes, right? Americans like black people ain't the only ones that wear J's. Shit, I done seen too many white boys walking around with some motherfucking Air Force Ones with some J's on. You know what I'm saying? With 23 Bulls throwbacks and all that shit from head to toe. Nobody's going after them white boys and telling them they can't buy Jordan shit. But let a black man or a black person, ADOS person, buy any of Jordan shit. They're anathema to all these so-called righteous, positive, uplifting black folk. You feel me? Psst. Exactly, Dr. Lely. Reparations plans should and would have financial literacy. But Dr. Lely, let me share something with you, sister, if I may. Even if it didn't, it still does not preclude the fact that the debt is owed. You said it earlier. It don't matter what ultimately ADOS people do with any cash remuneration that they receive as the American descendants of slavery. Whatever they do with it is their fucking business. I wouldn't give a good goddamn if you wanted to buy a flock of ducks. I wouldn't care if you bought a big screen TV. I wouldn't care if you went and got that Ferrari F40 you've been always drooling over. That's your business. You go and okay, let's say that you have a company, right? And you owe another company money. When you pay off that company, that money to that company, do you then get to tell that goddamn company how they should spend the money you just paid them? Do you get to go to that other company and say, okay, I'm paying off the debt I owe you, but I need y'all to spend that on stock buybacks and on R&D, okay? Huh? That other company would look at you like you crazy. Why? Because once you pay the money to them, it belongs to them to use for whatever the fuck they want to use it for, right? So how is it that you all can allow these people to just slick talk you into, I mean, they just talk real clever, just all out the side of their neck, talking about what you gonna do with what you niggas gonna do with money, whatever the fuck we want, like other Americans do. That's what we're going to do. Whatever other Americans do with money, that's what ADOS people will do with money. We're going to buy food. We're going to buy clothes. We're going to buy homes. We're going to buy vehicles. We're going to pay for educations, right? We're going to pay, doctor bills, so on and so forth, and the whole 9 yards. We are going to, you feel me? Like, how is it that everybody else has the right to live an American life except for ADOS people? Even other ADOS people try to chastise ADOS people on how they would spend their money. And it's disgusting. They're trying to deny your essential citizenship. Your essential citizenship. And it's bullshit. Anything you do with your resources is your right as an American. Your ancestors bled, lived, breathed, ate, slept, and died for you to have the right to be as American as anybody motherfucking else. And it's as simple as that. So the first thing we need to do, family, is we need to be honest. The second thing that we need to do is we need to take that outrage that we feel at the constant shade, the constant disrespect, the constant bullshit and drubbing and fuckery that we face as ADOS people, and we need to use that shit as rocket fuel. Let me explain. Anger is supposed to propel you to action. Right? When you get mad, you want to do some shit. You don't want to be talking a lot. When you get upset, when you get angry, right? You're not thinking about talking to a motherfucker. I've been ADOS, aka black folk, my whole life. And I can tell you that when I get pissed off, conversation is zero. How many of y'all, when y'all get mad, be like, I don't want to hear shit? There's a reason why, family, you don't want to hear anything. Because anger and outrage is supposed to drive you to act. Now, one thing to note, that anger needs to be harnessed. It needs to be guided, right? Rather than that anger being the equivalent of a firecracker that blows up and just boom everywhere. That shit needs to be guided like a cruise missile and pointed directly at the recipients who deserve it. We need to stop with the constant attacks on each other and the abuse of each other and displacing our outrage and anger at this bullshit the society makes us face. Let's point that at the society. This isn't rocket science, family. This is facts. This country deserves shade and smoke. This country deserves our ire. So if you so decide to give it to them, more power to you, my dear esteemed brothers and sisters. The last thing, the third thing that we need to make sure to do as ADOS people is we need to stop accepting everybody's bullshit as valid. We need to stop allowing rationalization to rule the day, right? I don't want to hear no more excuses. I don't want to hear no more bullshit narratives, no more funny bunny stories. I don't give a fuck about what happened to Irish folk. I don't give a fuck about what happened to immigrants. I don't give a fuck about what happened to the Chinese. I don't give a fuck about what happened to the Mexicans or the Latinos or whoever else. I only care and speak and talk about and am concerned with my narrative, my people's narrative. I don't want to hear any other rationalizations for bullshit. None. None. As ADOS people, can't nobody tell you shit, especially about your motherfucking experience in this country. How mentally traumatized do we have to be that we would allow clear enemies to not only speak for us, but to basically dominate the motherfucking conversation? How much learned helplessness have we embraced that we would allow people like Mark Morial, people uh like what's his name, the motherfucker, congressman, what's his name, damn it, not Conyers, the other one, the one that got fronted by that brother, right? That we would let any of these people even open their mouths to speak. Whenever they go anywhere, we should be there drowning them the fuck out. Their opinions are not valid. We don't care to hear them. But not just them, anyone. You have a right. Thank you, James Clyburn. You have a right to think whatever the fuck you want to think. In this country, you have a right to think whatever you want to think, at least until propaganda gets its hands on you. But I am not obligated to honor what the fuck you think in any way. If your thought process produces nothing but mental dog shit and drivel, the only response that any sane, rational individual should have is to laugh your ass off the stage. These people should not even have an opportunity to speak. They have made it absolutely clear that they do not speak in your interests. They don't speak with your voice. They're not saying anything you care to hear. And what little bit they are saying isn't backed by the data anyway. So you know what I say to them? 2 words. Fuck you. We need to be single-minded of focus, family. We need to be honest. We need to stop displacing the obvious outrage and upset, right? That we need to be directing at this government. Thank you, Dr. Lely. I'm glad that I'm accepted from that company, right? We need to take that energy and we need to point it directly at the source of our problems. Address our government, petition them for redress of grievances. And the last thing we need to do is we need to accept no excuses. None. Not a one. Not a one. Run me my shit. Cut the check. I don't want to hear nothing else. No excuses. I don't want to hear no drivel. I don't need your rationalizations. I don't want to talk about what happened in Benin. I don't give a fuck what happened, over in such and such. I'm only addressing what happened here. I don't care what happened with the Chinese. I don't care about none of that shit. Run us our shit. Single-minded of focus. Which, with the outrage and the pain and the upset that you've been feeling as a victim of this society, fam, me asking you to take that energy and use it for your benefit should not even be a hard sell. You should be jumping on board this ADOS thing to ride it until the wheels fall off. Shit, your man Mark Black loved this ADOS thing so much, I'm out there ghost riding this motherfucker, you heard? I'm sitting on the hood like, woohoo! Cut the check. That's all I wanted to say on it today, family. Family, thank you so much again for joining your man for Sucka-Free Saturday. I hope that something I said edifies. I hope that something I said provided you with some information. And most importantly, I hope that you join me. We need as many proponents and advocates for this thing as possible. There's links in the description field of my video here, links to free reports and resources that'll help you to get the knowledge you need to advocate properly. There's links to books that you can purchase. Again, purchasing those books through the links on my channel description helps to support my channel. If anything I said was beneficial and you feel like you got the coin, there's links in the description field to throw some resources to your brother as a tip. I definitely appreciate you, family. I definitely love you. And again, until the next time I get a chance to speak with you, as always, I want to wish you all love, peace, prosperity, and power. Real power to our people.